Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu wassalam ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Innani ote subhanahu wa ta'ala amtanani wa shukri. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi barakatuh. Lil ikwani fati fi din. Salamu mani ala mani taba huda. Lil ikwani fati fi Afrika, Europa, America, Caribbean, wa kuli makan. Haling wa salam bikum Andorama to my African brothers and sisters everywhere you may be. And this was a short notice today. I wanted to talk as a precursor because I'm going to now get into the King's list of Kmt. And it is a storied 31 dynasties that covered a long period of time. And I had to get into this particular topic in itself because I wanted to set a backdrop before we get into the kingdoms, because the kingdoms are divided into sections, and the King's list and what happened in the dynasties mirror to what is happening today as well. And what we learned from the King's list, the history, is that Subhanahu wa ta'ala has never blessed us when we allow foreign entities to come into Africa to rule. We've seen this. Now you're talking about over 3,500 years, Subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us a message that far back to tell us that those invaders that come from the north, meaning we know them in Fulani and Bandinka, Siri, we know as Tubab. And for them to come in and to rule us and to so forth and so on. We see in that time, I'm going to get into some very dreadful situations that many of you do not know about, because the documents have been basically put aside. Reason why that is because we know that the historians, the awful historians who misrepresented the African history period, and especially that of Kmt, they have possession of these documents, but they never talk about these documents. Because why? They want to keep Kmt, as we understand, as something as Tubab. And we have really, really dreadful situations that happen in Kmt. And I'll talk about that in the kingdoms. And it mirrored many things today, because human nature has not changed. When people are corrupted, things happen, you know what I mean? And you have revolts. So we had this in the old kingdoms. But today I want to touch on something before we get in that, because as we get into the King's list, we're going to see names. As a matter of fact, I pulled up a document today that I couldn't read it all. These supposed to be archaeologists, Egyptologists, and so forth and so on. They had the gall to say that they were talking about Tutu and Koma, as we know him in the Khan language, Tutankhamun, as the Europeans, they changed the name around. But they were saying that his clan were Nordic. See, this is the type of thing, the scholarship that has been presented. This is why us as Africans, we should learn our history, as you heard me say before, because how can we have a Tubab indigenous population inside Africa? It just didn't happen. And we even had Herodias, who was Greek, who gave us his spiel on what was there when he saw it. And he never saw these kind of people before. He didn't know what to call them. So he said they were burnt by the sun. That's not a Tubab, because he was Tubab himself. He knew what Tubab people are. He would have said they were redhead, or they were blind, or whatever. He said no. He said they were broad-nosed. They had a very kinky, crisp hair, and they were burnt by the sun. Again, 400 years before Jesus was born. So I wanted to touch on something about these names, brothers and sisters, again, because I want our brothers and sisters and descendants of West Africans who are living in the Caribbean, living in America, living in South America, living in Canada, living in Europe. Your names that you guys carry your predecessors had many of those names. This is the beauty of it, to again to designate how the West Africans, the Kmt who left, became the West Africans. But even before that, brothers and sisters, we have to use common sense here. We know mankind started from the south. It didn't start in Nordic land, as this man was trying to tell us. What that document I read was written about 2 or 3 years ago. Mankind was not originated in Europe. Europe was not even available at that time. It was under snow and ice. It was unavailable. And it took thousands of years before Subhanahu opened it up. See? So I wanted to get into that, about these names, because reason why I have relatives with these names. And it is something when you think about this. And brothers and sisters, last couple of days I've had a lot of and these, are Black Tubab and Tubab. And they have basically railroaded things that I said, because even they supposed to be Black, but they cannot hang on to the fact that their ancestors were, ancient Kemites. They cannot see this. And so they're now coming after me. So I'm getting hit with Black Tubab, and I'm getting hit by Tubab. And so, but I'm not letting that, stop me. I had a brother. He said he was a brother. He claimed he was from the Nuba people. He went on and gave me a spiel, and one of the brothers who like to come into chat here a lot, he was, I guess, at he had a program. He came in and he made a comment because he saw my comment, and he made a comment. So he started to come after me. So I calmly went after him, and I said, it's funny. You said you're from the Nuba people. Well, then you tell me, what cataract are you? What's the cataract that your people are at right now? He couldn't tell me. So I asked him, I said, in ancient times, were the Nubian people only one type, their prototype? He couldn't tell me. He wouldn't give me an answer. So this is the type of things, brothers and sisters, why you learn your history and learn it right. Because when you get attacked, you don't have to yell and scream. You don't have to threaten. You don't do any of that. You just try to ask questions. And that's the bottom line. And that's how you trump these people all the time. So we will look at this, brothers and sisters, and I find this very interesting. The title names of West Africans who were kings and pharaohs. I'm giving you some of this now. Some of us know who live in Senegal in the Senegambian region. We know the name Sen. We know the name Sar. We had kings with this name, especially in the Old Kingdom, between the first and the third the dynasties. We had this. And what is interesting, Siri, they used a term that they labeled a god. Rog became Ra. Remember this? Ra, the sun god, is, and I don't want to I covered that already, talking about actually what it meant, and Ray, and so forth and so on. We know that we have Siri people again, but we have all the way across, especially the corridor, West African corridor, who have prefixes with Ra in it, or suffix with Ra or Ray in it. See, we know this to be the case. And the titled names that many of the brothers had are prevalent today in West Africa. Brothers and sisters, when you look at this and you start looking at this evidence, you see the names that were in Medu Neter, they do not mimic the names of Europe. As you heard me been saying for weeks now, there's no relationship between the English language and the Medu Neter or any of the African language. There's no relationship. Yes, they may borrow something here and there, but there's no relationship. There's a relationship between ancient Kip and West Africa and Central Africa, yes, because we have the names and we have the linguistics. This is why no one wants to touch the linguistics. Why now I'm having people come to attack me, because when I give them this, I ask them the question, these Black Tubab, I say, you come with this, but can you explain me about these dynasties? How is it that the Wolof, the Wolof language and the kings had similar names? How can this be? They cannot answer me. See, they cannot answer me. This is the funny thing about that. And then I have one talk to me about the Fulla people. I asked him again. I said, well, what was the original name of the Fulla people? He could not give me an answer. All he wanted to do is yell and scream at me, talking about The Fulani people were there in Kmt. I mean, it's been ridiculous. When you talk about Kmt, you're going to draw out the weirdest people, black and white, black and white. So we know the name Sin. I have an elder cousin has the last name of Sin. I have cousins who are Mandinka and Fulani with the name Sar. We had kings with these names, especially in the first 3 dynasties. That's right, brothers and sisters. See, this is what makes that very interesting. And matter of fact, I'm gonna start to put some of these names here for you, so you'll have this. Because they were known as the Sin Kings. They were known as the Sin Kings. We have many brothers who may be listening from the Gambia. They know exactly what I'm talking about. This name, they know in Senegambia and Guinea, in Senegal and so forth, and parts of Mali. We know the people with the last name Sen. And you know something about these names, brothers and sisters. These titled names were royalty. They still belong to people today, and most of the people still have these names. There's some sort of dignitary. This has been carried on for 3,000 years, brothers and sisters. So the name Sin, when you see the brother or the sister and family who have the name Sin in Senegal, in Guinea, or in the Gambia, or parts of Mali, you know that their great grandfathers and stuff were kings in Kmt. They carried the name Sin, and also Sar. And I'll tell you one of the great kings is Sar. Here, Sar. Sar. Yeah. Teta. Yeah. Excuse me. I'm trying to Teta, because even these names, brothers and sisters, are very difficult because they're old. These are old names. Now, this is one of the kings in the 3rd dynasty. And again, how many brothers we know and families that have this name there? We know that we have a territory, an area in Senegal that with this it has Sin in it. Again, the African people would make us different. We are Africans. The Europeans don't have these type of designations. We do. We have our African brothers and sisters were proud of their nationality. So we had all of these Ka, Ba, Sin, Sar. We had all of these designations. And it gave us for our history, so we know that these are our ancestors, that they were Black Africans. Sin, Sar, Ra, Ba, Ka. All these names is what we use. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful history. So it's Black nationalism, but not in the sense of racism, because they came in because there was, they had invaders and so forth and so on. We know that. And Africa has never been left alone. They have been coming for over 3,000 years. The Europeans have been invading Africa for obvious reasons. See, so this is, again, brothers and sisters, why our history is very, very important. And that we should be very, very mindful of this history. And again, the title names, okay, Sin. And Wolof, Mandinka, Siri people with that name, Sar, Rog, Siri name meaning, again, that the what transpired centuries later was Ra and Ba, came from Ra, which is still used by the Siri people today. We have Ba and Ka. You see the marriage of the souls. Ba is again, I will get more into this a little bit more, literal here pretty soon. But you see here, Ba and Ka, you see the marriage of the souls, because the ancestral brothers believed in the hereafter big time. Their whole lives were geared preparing themselves for the hereafter. We see this in documents over and over again. I don't care if they were our Wolof ancestors, if they are our Mandinka ancestors, if they were our Khan or Ga or Anyway, brothers and sisters, if they were your Yoruba or Ife or any of the other groups, and you know, there's so many groups, ethnic groups that were there in ancient Kip and came and moved to West Africa. But the Ba and the Ka, why it is so important, is because they believe that the marriage of the souls happened in the seven heavens. So Ba Ka, again, as you heard me say, we had Hausa brothers and sisters, and we still have the Hausa language today, where Ba is an integral part of that grammar. In the olden times, we had people with the name, and I'm just saying the Arabic name, it's used Yahya Ba, okay? Yahya Ba. This was used by many Hausa kings. Last name we put was Ba. Designation meaning Hausa. Designated meaning black man. See, so we had all of these types of things. You had the Fotofola people, okay? The Fotofola people. Again, Bari. These are titled names that the Fotofola people still carry today. Bari. And again, Bari was a person, a king or high dignitary, and he was a righteous person. And they knew, and they take the title Ba, meaning that he's a righteous person, and his hereafter may be assured in this sense to be in the heavens. Because why? Ba and Ka was the marriage of the soul. Ka is on earth. Ba was in the seven heavens. So therefore, if the person is good, that would the souls would marry up. Our ancestral brothers, the Fotofola, the Hausa brothers, even the Yoruba, even used Ba. It was so significant that they took that name as righteousness, meaning their lives were righteous. They carried a what we call in Arabic Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path that Subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran. Sirat al-Mustaqim. This is what our brothers. So they designated this name Ba. The Fotofola people had Ka also, and we had kings and pharaohs with the name Ka. These are all title names. You find this still in Fotofola today. You find this in the Sudani Fulfulde language. You find this in Hausa language, Ba. So, brothers and sisters, the evidence for us showing that the West Africans are the ancient Egyptians is overwhelming. Then we go to something else, brothers and sisters. We have to look at this. The Nubian people are our ancestors. The Nubian people begin to branch off. They became the Akan. They became the Wolof. They became the Mende. They became the Mandinka. They became the Fotofola. They became the Ife people. They became the Tiv people. They became the Hausa people. They became all of these different ethnic groups. The Capelli. The Nubian people are the nucleus because they were the first ones there. And again, we go back again. Our black brothers want to make sure that the history knew who they were. Annie was used. Again, we have brothers and sisters, as you can see, we have designation titled names. Sin, Sar, Rog, Ra, Ba, Ka, and Annie. And Annie. All of these titled names were designated to tell you which group, who was running, what they believed. This is so important, brothers and sisters. This is not European. This is how we trump the Europeans, because Europeans don't have nothing like it. Their languages are not like our African languages. They are not. And I want somebody to show me the Irishman who has the name Sin. I want somebody to show me an Italian who has the name Sar. I want somebody to give me a name of Ra that's in Scandinavia. I want somebody to give me a designation to tell me the name and use the suffix Ba in Russia. Or how about Ka in Netherlands? And how they use that. You will not find it. There's no relationship. So how can you have a people that's supposed to be Tuba, but their language is totally different? It doesn't make sense, brothers and sisters. But then when we go down the street to the west, we have Africans who have the same names. As you heard me say before, why is Memphis, they changed to Memphis? Why is Memphis so important? Because it's a part of a center in one time in Kempt. We find Memphis when we translate it to Memphis. Where is Memphis today? In Ghana. You can find the Sin Valley where? In Senegal. You can find the Sar people who were there and running kings in the first, second, and third dynasties. The Sar people, where are they at today? They're in the Gambia. They're in Guinea. They're in Senegal. Not in Europe. Not in England. Not in Irish. Not Welsh. Not Spanish or Italians. This is what I'm talking about. And we go further on this. Annie's assistant designation, meaning again, has something to do with subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning their belief and the person who's righteous. So again, if the person was righteous, you will see the name, what? Yahya Annie, meaning he's a truthful person. This is our way of life in the ancient times, brothers and sisters, prior to Islam. And let's go further into this. At the bottom here, I hope you guys can see this. You see the Yoruba kings and Ife kings. Now, our brothers who live in Nigeria. Now, tell me if not the Ife king had the name of Ani. That came designated out of Ani. Brothers and sisters, the evidence is overwhelming. Overwhelming. The title name Ani in in Ife and so forth in Yoruba. Brothers and sisters, we have a beautiful history. You should stand up and be proud, black man and black woman, because this is your language. This is our land. This is our dynasties. Yes, we had the Europeans to come. Yes, the Tubab, they did come, but they did not have this beautiful language system that we had. That's why I have brothers steaming hot with me. And it's supposed to be Africans, African Americans in particular. Some are Africans, but I designate them as African Tubab and Black Tubab, because how can they get upset when their ancestors have the name Sin, Sar, Ba, Ka, and Ani, and they don't want to recognize that? What kind of black man is that? See, so I'm letting out my steam today because I want to make sure, brothers and sisters, that we have an understanding about this, because I'm going to get into the King's List. And when I begin to start to give you names, you will know what I'm talking about. You will know that this came from the Wolof, Siri, the Mandinka people. When you see the name Sar, you understand that. When you hear a name with the suffix Ba, you know most likely he's Yoruba or Hausa, or he could be Ife, or even Tiv, or any like this. And we know the Ka, when the Ka was used, we know the Futufola people use that. Matter of fact, Sheikh there, he found one hieroglyphics when he went to Egypt, which was very interesting because he saw something. He found the people who made these look like the Futufola people. Our brothers and sisters or masters at braiding hair, okay? The Futufola people, the Fulani people. People don't understand Futufola, the Fulani people, okay? And now you know where it came from. Ancient Egypt, we have a mural of who's a prototype Fulani person with the braids and certain beads. Brothers and sisters, we have been doing this for over 3,500 years. And we honed our skills in Kempt. And when we left Kempt, we went to West Africa and we settled there. We kept our names and we kept our customs intact. We even kept our writing systems intact. This is why I'm saying, brothers and sisters, all of this evidence points that the Kemites were Black Africans, and they became the West Africans and the Central Africans as well, and the East Africans, because we cannot slight our brothers. You heard our brother here last week, our Somali brother, he was talking about languages, and we were talking about how we use the Ka and Ba. Remember Ani Ka, Ani Ba? We were talking about stuff like that because the brothers in the East are our brothers as well. All of us have Nubian heritage. The prototype was the Nubian people, and then those Nubian people, began to move. And when they moved to the West, they became who? They became the Siri people. They became the Mandinka people. They became the Wolof people. They became the Jollof people. They became all these ethnic groups that we know today in West Africa. Beautiful history, brothers and sisters. Beautiful, beautiful history. We know that the ancient Kmt script was influenced by the nationality. Again, brothers and sisters, black nationalism, you think is something new. Our brothers was doing it 3,500, 4,000 years ago. Again, by using the name Annie was a designation, again, for truthfulness and nationality. So when the future generations come, they know that their Ani brothers were running the show in the first kingdoms, along with the others, because you know each dynasty was long. It's not 5 10 years. It's long, big. The first three dynasties, respectively, were dominated by the Sin Kings. Again, I have a cousin with the name Sin, last name. I have another cousin with the name Sar. They dominated, and again, the people who dominated were the prototype Nubians, who became the Wolof, who became the Mendinka, and all these other groups that we know today. It is a fascinating, fascinating topic, brothers and sisters. And we know that our people use these designations. So we know that the most dominant ethnic groups of the Old Kingdom, which I'll get into here days, inshallah ta'ala bi'ifnillah, that we know the powerful ethnic groups of the Khan, the Wolof, the Siri, the Mendinka. They were, integral part, very integral part. The Fulani, the Yoruba, and other groups like this, the Igbo, they came later. So we know that they came and arrived later on the scene because we have evidence of that, because the language began to change. When they begin to start to meet with the Greeks, they begin to change, which is typical. When people come to, you got Americans coming here to Morocco. Morocco, we have Arabic language, but because we have adopted certain things from the Americas, right? So we use like television, okay, you see? So as television is not an Arabic word, but it's used, you see? So there's influences that happen when people come to a nation. You have a tendency to change the language. No different than in America. We use the word safari, right? Safari is what? Swahili. We know this, right? But safari is used in the United States because of the influences. This is what I'm talking about, because human beings are all the same. We are influenced by other human beings who are different than us. The Sin and Sar names respectively still belong to the Siri Wall of Mendinka today. Boy, I mean, brothers and sisters, it's a fascinating history and designation. And I'll give you something now to show you. In the first dynasty, I'm gonna give you names so you have this, because we may still have brothers that's still sporting the names Osorta. I'm hoping our brothers come to see this. Okay, see, my computer doesn't like to see these old African names. They do not like it. They want to keep changing the lettering to our brother's name. Okay, Osorta. Okay, Osorta. Okay, Sin. Okay. Okay. Now, Now, here's one in the first dynasty, brothers and sisters, Osorta Sin. This is a name. I'm not sure about Osorta. Osorta could be Osoro. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities of this first name. The last name, designation Sin. The Sin, again, represents also the priests. The priests during these dynasties, and also in the middle dynasties, which I'll get into, also use Sin. The Sin Kings, the Sin priests, some became kings or pharaohs. So we know this prominent word. Today, we understand Sin. The Sin people tend to be royalty, meaning rich and influential. We understand that. This has been carried on because they were the kings in the Old Kingdom, especially between the first and the third dynasties. So these names transformed to royalty in West Africa today. We understand that. We know the Ife king named Ani, right? We know it's derived from their ancestors who were in Egypt, Ani. Brothers and sisters, we have a beautiful history. A beautiful history. You should stand up and be proud, brothers and sisters. You should be standing up and being proud that you are an African, because this history is yours. This is, we had the most prominent civilization of mankind. It was not in China. It was not in Japan. It was not in Russia. It was not United States. It was here in Africa. And our West African brothers, our our ancestors was the nucleus of those civilizations, those 31 dynasties. You should be very proud of that. Very, very proud of that fact. Here's another name I want to give you guys too, so you can have this, because I want to see if we have brothers that have names who speak some of the dialects, Mandinka and so forth. Because I'm gonna ask also my elder cousin, because he's starting to send me stuff too, because he and I Petarib, okay, Petarib, yeah, Petarib, sin, okay. See, my computer brothers and sisters is changing the documents as I write these old names in there. They change it. Okay. Okay. Now I gotta lock it in. Yeah. Okay. Sent. Here's another name that was used. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, I got some. Okay, I'll get to you, brother. Just hold it for a second. I'm just trying to make a point. Now, here's another. This our king here was, which makes it very, very interesting. He was around in the 16th century, and again, he was Nubian. But you see the designation of sin. You see the designation of sin. Again, Wolof, Mandinka, Sidri. All right, we know this is designation meaning these people, plus the Fotofola, because they intermarried with my cousins I have in Senegal and in the Gambia are mainly a mixture. They are Mandinka and Fulani. Okay, no doubt about that. Our either one of our grandmothers they were Fulani, or our grandfather's Fulani, and the mother was Mandinka. We have that. So, but this name is prevalent. Again, these dynasties sported these names, brothers and sisters, sin. So I gave you some of the names of the pharaohs that had this designation. Our languages are unique. Our languages are unique, and they are germane to us. See, so they're not European. These type of names here are not. And of course, as you heard me say, the first of this, the designation of the Ka, the Ba. Okay, Sin, Sar, Ani, to Ani. See, these names, all these designations have to do with nationality, pride of that nationality, and a distinction to let you know who was running the show in ancient Kmt. We got a question here from one of our brothers. How you doing, my dear brother Salam? Can you show us in non-English ancient text that mentions the word foot? Okay. If you hadn't if you hadn't seen my other courses prior to this, if you're new here, my dear brother, for your benefit, let me show you something here. The ancient people, we know that before they became even Futafula, there was no such thing as Fulani people. Fula, any of that, there's none. There was two designations for the Futafula people. There were the Sao. Okay, the Sao people became the Fulani, okay? And I'll draw this out to you. Then they're also known as the Ka people because the religion dealing with the hereafter. Okay, this here, the Sao, this was a designation for the Fulani people. And I have in another segment, I will, if I can remember right, I'll show you a picture of Sheikh Diop from Senegal. He's long past now. He found a mural in his investigation of the prototype Futafula person, because now the Fulani person was mixing way back over 3,000 years ago. But they showed one diagram. They said they believed that Ramses and the clan of Ramses, because you know Ramses about Moses, Islam, and all that, they believed him to be perhaps a part of the Futafula community, because they have pictures of family members that had braided hair. The Nubians weren't like this. The Nubians had shorter hair. Remember, you saw my murals, they were jet black. But you saw the murals also when the brothers began to move from the north to the south to go back for protection with their Nubian brothers. They showed the brothers were light brown skin to medium brown skin. Then they showed our Nubian brothers as jet black. They had these names Sao and Ka as a name for those who were Fulani people. That's right. This is what was written in the documents. And the Fulani king of the late 17th dynasty to part of the 18th dynasty in Kmt, he had the name Ka. We know that the Fulani people had this designation. There was no Fulani. They became Fulani when they left Kmt and entered into West Africa. Then they became Futufula or Fulani or for 40 people and so forth and so on. Habapular, all that. That's later. But when they were in Kmt, they were known as Sao and they were known as Ka people. And let me see what our brother says here. Can you show the Mandinka? Okay, the Mandinka people, as you must have been late on this. The Mandinka, as you see, I said here before, we know that the Mandinka people had this. This is one of the kings in the 16th dynasty named here, Sin. We know the Sin has to do with Mandinka people, also because the Wolof married a lot and live among with Mandinka people. It was very difficult to really distinguish. But we know that that it was a designation, because we know even in back there, they showed people who were very, very black, and we believed them to be Wolof because they were very tall and very muscular, more so than anybody else. It's funny, the Wolof still has this designation today, right? The people know a lot of the Wolof people, they're very tall, and many of them, especially in Senegal, muscular, the wrestlers and so forth and so on. They had that there in Kmt. If you look at the murals of hand combat, if you guys saw my class, you showed big black men. Say big black men who were wrestling and whatnot 3,500 years ago. But this one, the Padre Sin, is the name for the Mandinka. The Mandinka people were the Sin people. So I'm hoping, my dear brother, that answers the question on that. The House of People, we had, again, for our dear brother here, the House of People had the suffix of Ba as one name. And they also had this as a designation, Shariki. Okay, let me get that to you here. Okay. Then, okay, Ba was the prefix. We know that had to be in the group. And as you heard me, if you didn't follow my class, I talked to my class, and my estimations from my investigation, what I've done and all the studying I've done, I believe that when people came into West Africa, the Ife people didn't end up in Senegal. The Yoruba, Tiv, Igbo, all of them came and they settled in the same area. So I'm thinking they left from the same regions of Kmt to present-day Nigeria. This is what I believe. And the same thing, you notice, the Mandinka and the Mende, very similar people, right? Wolof, they're not in the area of Nigeria. They migrated and they went into another part of coastal West Africa, because the Mende, Mandinka, and so forth. Very interesting. We know the term Shariki, we know, was used by in the 17th dynasty, I believe it was, in the early 17th dynasty. The House of Kings used the designation of Ba and also Shariki. Shariki was used as an ornament on the doors of the House of Kings. We know that Sarika, I think, means, in the Hausa language, means king. How have we have the similarities? This is why I'm saying we know that the Africans, the West Africans, were the ancient Egyptians. There's no doubt about it, because here we have similarities of names. See, so it's very, very interesting. No, brother. Wait a minute, hey, brother. This is about Kmt. Okay, I'm not going. No, you know what? I'm not going to. I think you're in the wrong show. you know, I'm talking about West Africans. If you don't believe this, that's fine. I'm not going to debate with you, but you go on another show. I'm giving you evidence that the West Africans, okay, were the ancient Egyptians. You can't separate the two. Yes, they've changed in some ways, but you have to look at my other films because I gave you the evidence to show you, and I'm giving you even more evidence today, dear brother, that the West Africans are the ancient Egyptians. The sin. If I have brothers who from Senegal and from the Gambia and the Senegambia region, they'll tell you about the Sin people. The Sin people were there in Egypt and they were kings. And many dynasties, the Sin people, the Sar people, we know that comes from the Western Corridor region. We know that. And again, West African, the Shariki, we know it's Hausa. They, in the 16th and part of the 17th dynasties, the term Sharika means king, we know in Hausa. They use those designations to put on buildings and on their the things to show who they were. So we have those designations. So I don't know, show us an ancient BC text. I don't have the hieroglyphics for everything. I showed hieroglyphics in one of my other courses here 2 weeks ago. I'll do this for this brother here. I'm going to see if I can get, if I can find those texts that's got it's got the hieroglyphics to it. Okay, no, this here means netter and netter. This means netter and the ancient. This where we at? Where I had those things to show the. Okay, here we go. Here we have one. We have one chart here. Let me get you out here. We have here. These are the ancient scripts that we know that came out of ancient Kmt. You see the Fotofola there, the Wolof, the Bassa, the Mendinka, with the Capelli, Lomi, Mende, Barbara, the Bete people. There's also the Bamum script. There's many. And we know that the Mende script was very famous. Again, showing this came out from the Metu Neter, which is the official first language, written language of mankind. So we have the similarities. So that there gives you the way you're teaching. Okay, you're mixing butter. You know what, brother? Please go back to my other courses because I'm going. You have not looked at my other courses, so it's not fair for you to say this because I've given history in my prior courses. Now I'm getting ready to go to the kings list, but I wanted to give names of some of the kings, okay, that are prevalent because I don't want to go into the old kingdom and I start talking about Perib sin. You're going to be confused. So who is this? I'm giving the names because I wanted you to have an understanding on who these kings were. They became the Mendinka people, they became the Wolof people and the Siri people. This is why I'm doing that. And you're saying I can't mix the two. I'm mixing the two because I'm trying to show that the names of the Sin people, my cousins, I have cousins with the name Sin and Sar, are the ancient Egyptians. This is what I'm doing. And I advise you to go back to my other courses first before you come here to put this here, because I'm not skipping over history. You're teaching your, okay. Yeah, okay. No problem, brother. It's no problem to me. It's each person have his own. That's good. I'm not going to fight you on that. Each own, and that each one has its own things, and it's okay. Like say, I've had this all week long, brothers and sisters. I have this, and I don't believe these are black people. These are Tubab, because reason why I know they're Tubab, because they've been doing this. These Tubab who do this here write some of the most stupid stuff to me, and they steal the documents from my notes, and then they just like they did in olden times, and they transpose those names, and they try to claim it's theirs. When they send it to me, I sit there and say, whoa, wait a minute. I said, where'd you get this? They give me the wrong information. So I know I've been attacked the whole week about this, and I've given the evidence. it's up to them. If they don't like it, hey, it's on them. Because why? Egypt is the point, because it's the most celebrated civilization of mankind. They want to show that it was white. We know it's not. Look at the proof again, brothers and sisters. Look at writing scripts. This is not English. This is not Irish. This is not Latin. See? Okay, and here we go. These things you're saying absolutely verified. Yes, brother, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother. Yes, they're verifiable. Our brother here, Muhammad, he's a Somali brother, and he and I was talking about this last week in the course. There's the evidence. We have people. If the man is a black man, he's a tubab, because I don't know how he can sit there and say it's a false history. I gave him the evidence here. Is these our ancestors who wrote this ancient script here? Are they false? See, this is why, again, brothers and sisters, why we are so down on the continent. They could not have done the things they've done to this continent without black traders to help them. They could not perpetuate slavery without black Tubab helping them. They could not take over Africa without black Tubab helping them. See, this is a simple fact. And our brother here told right, because these things are easily verifiable. He doesn't want to see that. He don't want to hear that. He said it's a false history. That's fine. And we can't fight everybody and whatnot. I give it. If he wants to dispute that, he can. If he wants to look at the scripts and he look at our African scholars who wrote about these issues, he should do this, because then that way he can have a good, well-rounded education and whatnot. Because to say it's a false history, he can't be a black man. If he's a black man, I don't know what kind of black man says that your ancient ancestors who wrote in this script is false. That's incredible, incredible. But we know that they're provocateurs. We understand that, and it's no problem. Right on. If he's a black man, fine. Black African, that's fine. But like I said, he wants me to write in some type. He's paradox. He said in some BEC script. I don't know what he means by that. I didn't understand what he meant by that. But he said you can't mix the history of old and the new. Well, if he's some other courses, I did go back, talk about the history. And I'm going to now go deep into the history with the Kings list. But I have to give these names, because if I don't, it's going to be confusing. When I give you the name of Sar, you'll know who the Sar people are, because we know the Sar people today in Senegal. So I'm giving that. And each one of us, we have to be strong, brothers and sisters, because our history has been whitewashed and taken from us. And we're going to have people who say they're black. They're going to be fighting you as well to keep us down and make sure that our history is not where it should be. So be proud of that, brothers and sisters, and be strong. Brother, this is not the case, because I can give you something that happened, and I'll get into that when I get in the King's list. The Greeks and the Romans could not have taken the northern part of Kmt without a trader helping them. And they had that. When we had our ancient brothers, black brothers, assisted the Romans to take over the northern part of, we understand, Egypt today, it was them. So well before we have black, we have two names for them in the Arabic languages that deals with the Sharia about people who do wrong. We have two. We have the Ka'in, who's a trader in the Arabic language, okay? And Kawana. Kawana is a person who's he's a trader also. And a betrayer. One's a betrayer, and the other one's he's a traitor. So we have Ka'in, and then we have Kawana in the Arabic language, and that deals with this. But way before Islam came in the 7th century, brother, we had black brothers who betrayed their black brothers and sided with the Greeks and the Romans, and that's how they took over the northern part. And why they couldn't take over all of Kmt, because when you got to a certain cataract, you had to deal with the Nubians, and the Nubians weren't having it. See, and if you notice something about the Nubians, and I talked about this before, and the Nuba people, I've been to Sudan. I had this out the other day, but the guy said he was Nuba. I know he wasn't, because when I asked him questions, he didn't give me an answer. The Nuba people I saw in Sudan, as you heard me say, jet black. I never seen people that black before in my life. And they had, some had the greenish tinge, some had bluish tinge to them. So we know them to be original Nubian people, because there are many branches of them, right? So, you know, this type of thing like this, you know, I mean, it goes back, way back. This African continent lost its power and lost its way with Subhanahu wa ta'ala because we had people who betrayed us. And Egypt's history is no different, brothers and sisters. They had it, but that's way, you know, down from when I talk about the kingdoms. Well, we did have it, and some, what they did was so egregious, it led to a downfall, and it led to things that happened, famine, that, I mean, some of it was very dreadful, and we lost a lot of people because of what our black brothers had did against their black brothers to aid the Tubab to take over Egypt. It was part of the history. Okay, I'll get into that, inshallah, dialect. You're lying and don't know history. The Romans never what are you talking about? Let me, who said that? Who said they reached the sub-Saharan? I said they couldn't get past the first cataract. That's what I was talking about. That's what the Nubian people. I didn't say that. So we have another provocateur here, and he's out. Anyway, brothers and sisters, you know, this it's been almost ongoing, and you got to think about something. Which person and group, or whoever's giving orders like this and doing things like this, who's guiding them? Is Subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding these people here? No, they're not. We have to always remember that. And when you have these people like this, the best way you defeat them is with education. This is the best way you defeat them. And when they come up with silly stuff like this, no one said, I know better than that. We're talking about the cataracts. Anyone understand the cataracts when they didn't go past the first, second cataract? We know they never got to the sub-Saharan region. And I said that. And I haven't even got into the Kings list yet, but we'll get into things about the cataracts. And speaking of cataracts, I'll give this, I'm glad I mentioned this. The cataracts, brothers, let me explain something to you. The cataracts there's 6 divisions of these cataracts along the Nile. We call it Arabic Nile, right? Now, you have as you understand, Egypt, it was lower and upper Egypt, okay? The upper Egypt means what? South. And the lower means north, right? Because why? The river flows up, right? We know that. Now, the Nubian kingdoms and the Nubian areas also were divided by the cataracts. So you had, again, upper Nubia, which was, again, southern Nubia, and then the lower means north. It's confusing. But the cataracts, brothers and sisters, if you look and study the Nile, there's cataracts. These cataracts are determined by waterfalls or rapids. And it was designed to stop the ships. So this is Subhanahu wa ta'ala's doing. He made these cataracts so that way ships can't, because you know when you put a big, bulky ship, it's going to tear up the waterway, especially a river. It's going to tear it up. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has these cataracts there to prevent major ships from to go on the river to use it and so forth like this. You cannot, because these cataracts will stop these big boats. Some of them are waterfalls, others are very, very, swift rapids. This is what you call a cataract. And there's 6 cataracts of the Nile, 6. See, so I'm giving that little education because we'll get into that. Because when I start talking about the Nubia, you can't talk about Kmt without talking about Nubia. You cannot. See, you cannot do that, and because it's intertwined. But again, that's kind of head of a story, and everything. But my brothers and sisters, I'm close here to closing here because I wanted to just give you some of this history about the names and whatnot like that, which is again very, very interesting to say the least. And I wanted to have this time to spend with you and to go over this again, and then I'll be closing. The Sin and Sar names respectively belong to the Siri, Wolof, and Mendinka people today. We know that. We have the Sar Kings, and I gave you some of the names in the chat. We've had that. We talked about that, and we said the representative nationality. Our people have designations. We used prefixes and suffixes in order to show the nationality and so forth of the people, and also your worship, because we know that the Ra has to do with worshiping. Again, you heard me talk about the sun god, but we know that the Siri people also had the word Rog, which became Ra. We know that ancient Kip script was influenced by nationality. We know that the ancient script, because the Ani was used. We know Osora Ani. We know, all these, and the black people, our black ancestors had these designations. Again, you saw, I wrote and I gave in the comment section in the chat, Perub Sin. This is how they used. We had a pharaoh, the Fulani pharaoh. His name was Ka. See, so we had those designations and whatnot. And it's a beautiful history, brothers and sisters, a very, very beautiful history. We had the titled names again, as you see here. We had Ba, we know Ba was used. We know Ka was also used by the Fulani people. So we had Sin, Sar. These are some, brothers and sisters. I'm not giving you all. I'm just only giving you small portions to get you up to speed. We know the Yoruba and the Ife kings and had used the name also Ani, which is very similar to Annie, see, which was the first original writings that was used by the Anu people. So how, and there's other words in Meta Neher that we know that the Yoruba people still use today. So we understand that all of these people were there in ancient Kemt. Beautiful history, brothers and sisters, beautiful history. And again, the title names, as you heard me talk about there, and we had which I gave here last week, again, to bring some up to speed. The Anu people were the first prototype Nubian people who came to Egypt. They were the first one. It's them who received this information from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who helped to set mankind on the right path, to give his power, to talk about his rule on this earth and whatnot. We also know, as you see here, we had that the OT, which is the history of Kemt, mirrors the Genesis of the Bible. That's very interesting, isn't it? If you go and when you start to hit and learn, especially when you hit the Book of the Dead, you'll find some of the OT is there. That mirrors some of the Genesis verses in the Bible. And it preceded the Bible by 3,000 years. That's something, isn't it? See, that's very interesting. We have a brother here. We got Kmt. Yes, Kmt. This is the name. Okay, you wrote some here. Okay, could you tell us the part of Egypt the house people were located? No, I don't know for sure, my dear brother, if they were located in because we know. And let me put this down here. We know that Menfi was an area that that many of the pharaohs used at one time. Let me see here. Menfi, and English we know as Memphis. Okay, no, I can't remember how. Memphis. Okay, no, yes, excuse me. Memphis, yes, because they transposed this, and the Europeans have. Okay, we know that a lot of the dynasties had used Memphis, and this is the of the English or the Greek version of Menfe, which is we know is in Ghana today. Let me see what else you said, and what part of Kent the synagogue. I don't know, my dear brother. I don't know that answer, because we know that again the Sin kings were in the first three dynasties, and we know also they came in the middle dynasties, and then they were near the end dynasties, because one of my ancestors, Shabaka, was a pharaoh in the 25th dynasty. So I'm not sure exactly, but I know they begin to move to the south by the 19th, the 19th dynasties. They begin to move because of wars with the Europeans. Okay, I know this part. So again, where they were settled. Now there's some answers to that, because I know that they have Menfi was one. There's some other places, but which kings? I to be honest, my dear brother, I don't really have that answer. But I know that they were mostly in the lower Egypt region, and that's where they were, because we know that they built the hieroglyphics. Was they begin to build these in the fourth dynasty? If I have to go back to my notes, but the fourth, which I will cover, about the fourth dynasty, something around in there. So I'm not sure if you have that answer. That's good, because I'm not sure where they are all located, because there's a lot of information, and each dynasty they I know I I didn't want to talk about this, but I know there's this area you probably know today that separates Egypt and we know this here. This here was also used, my dear brother, for the separation, and we also separation between Nubia and Kemp. We know this, and we know the brothers begin to move to this region. This is the name that's there today. Wadi is in Arabic, meaning, if you know the Arabic language, Wadi is a valley. Okay, see, so we know that this area divided us. And again, in olden times, they had a name, and it wasn't probably Wadi, it's probably something else. But we understand the separation between Kemp and Nubia was the cataracts. That's right. The cataracts separated them, the cataracts. Because the cataracts are like natural barriers. Very, very interesting. But where all the dynasties, where they were all located, I know Menfi is one. I know that. And President Alexander is Alexandria, but I can't remember what they call Alexandria in ancient times in Meta. I can't remember, because there's a lot of information, my dear brother. I'm sorry, I don't have that answer for you. Okay, yeah, okay. Then I don't understand. Well, what do you mean, my dear brother? Then I don't know what you mean by that. Please elaborate. So, my dear brothers and sisters. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for your answer. Okay, yeah, my dear brother, you're welcome. The next time, inshallah, I will get into the kingdom, the king's list. And again, I have to touch Nubia, because it was the Nubians who were basically were the most dominant. The Khan were also, but we know that the Nubian people played a hell of a role, especially in the first three dynasties. We understand that. I have to mention some facts about that because it's important. We know that the greatest, and I can say this to you today, that the greatest cycles of the king's list, or the Oti, was the first Old Kingdom. This is when it was at its zenith. It was at its power, and they did not mix with anybody at that time. But then when the Middle Kingdom came, then the mixing and a lot of the inner workings, because the Europeans, the Tubab, begin to come into Egypt and whatnot. But the Old Kingdom is where all of the knowledge, sciences, governance, all of that came. And then the other dynasties just live by that, just like we do today. You go to university, we have things that was written, long time ago, we still follow that. That's what happened in the dynasties. Their forefathers, they looked at this and they ran with it. Some they improved some things here and there to adapt to newer times. But essentially, brothers and sisters, the dynasties, there was something else. Those 31 dynasties were something. But I will give you a lot of tragedy as we go along, because I have to talk to you about each of these kingdom of in the king's list in cycles is what we call that. And the history, especially the old kingdom, was something else. It was something else, brothers and sisters. The first six dynasties were off the charts, okay, with knowledge. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a lot, and we should be very proud of that. He gave us a lot. He gave us a lot of knowledge and sciences and so forth and so on in the old kingdom. And unfortunately, things happened when we got to the middle kingdom and on beyond. In the third cycle, things begin to really transport. But even in the old kingdom, we did have some problems because human nature, you know how human beings, we begin corrupted and things happen. But that's later on. So, okay, my dear brothers and sisters, if there's anything else here in the chat, please write something. If you guys have a question, please let me know here. And if not, I'll be closing here pretty soon. I'm looking over something to see because there's other stuff I don't want to cover because I got to cover that in the King's list. I'm looking at some other notes here that I might have skipped over for my lesson today. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I gave you the information about the cataracts and everything like that. That's important because the cataracts, there's something else. I think I wrote. No, I didn't put it in there. I didn't put it. Oh, I thought I put it in there. Okay. No, I don't see it. I don't see that in there. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I will be closing here, and I'll be back on this again in some days to start now in earnest to give you the about the kingdoms, which is very important, and this will lead up to the Exodus. And because when we get to the Exodus part, this is where you have a lot of tragedies, and there's a lot of confusion, a lot. Okay, and the Bible doesn't have it; they didn't have it right. We got one brother here. We got Mustafa. Yes. How you doing? Yes. Salam alaikum, my dear brother. Wa alaikum salam. Rahmatullah katu. Shukran jazilan. Jazakallah khairan. Kmt. Thank you very much, my dear brother. Thank you very much for writing. This is my Moroccan brother here. I've been knowing him for many years. He always takes care of me and my family and whatnot. And he's a good brother. And yes, inshallah, Allahumma, Ameen. Okay, my dear brother here says for Sar means top loose. Now, maybe that says where they're from. I don't know, my dear brother, because I know that my cousins, the elder cousins who are still living, have the name Sin. Now, I will tell you this. I believe, let me write something here, and I want you guys to look at this Sar and then the Siri, okay? The Siri, I'm gonna write this here because there's something I've been thinking about. I've been trying to research this. Okay, Sar is the name of many of the pharaohs in the first three dynasties. Sar. They use the suffix Sar. Some use the prefix Sar and then the name. But we know Siri, the people, okay, they're living in Senegal, some parts, I think in Mali today, and so forth and so on. We know that they also had this destination of Sin and Sar as well. Okay, but we know that we've determined in the hieroglyphics that Siri, okay, had to do with those. Let me get that meaning for you again. Those who are the the Siri. I want to get the right translation. Those who are the caretaker, I think, of the temples. Something Siri means something about the caretakers of the temples. This is what actually the abbreviation of the word Siri, which is an ethnic group we're talking about today. The Siri people, that actually that meaning means the caretakers of the temples. That's abbreviation of the long definition of that. We know the Siri people were prototype Nubian people. They became the Siri people when they left to go into West Africa. See, so I again, I don't know exactly where each, because where did they, when the Akan came in and they began to change the Mehu Neher, where were they living? We know they had to be in between probably some of the cataracts, we understand, but exactly where they were at, I do not know. When the Akan and the Ga people as well, the Ga people were prominent as well. Where they were centralized, I don't know. Where were the Somal people we understand today? Where were they located? In my personal opinion, I believe that they came out from the what is called the upper Nubia, and then of course they left. But we know the Kmt Kings were there to the north. We understand that, and we also believe that this, like you heard me say last week, the Somali and the Fulani are basically the same people. But what happened was, because they all originated from the Sao people of Nubia, okay, the Nubians, who mixed with the Romans. And we have hieroglyphics that I saw one to check. I mean, interesting. It looked like modern day Fulani people and Somali people. The way, especially the braiding of the hair, which the Fulani people and the Somali people use this type of style, they had in hieroglyphics over 3,000 or more than that, 4,000 years ago. Very, very interesting. Oh yes, this we have to translate the caretaker. Yes, and we know that part. But you asked a good question. Where were all these people located? See, this is and where did they settle? Because where did the Ifi and the Yoruba people, because they're very similar, and the Igbo people, where were they at there as well? See, we know that the Fulani people were in the Delta region because they were caretakers of the cattle, right? See, so we know that they were in the Delta region and so forth and so on of Egypt because of the grasslands and so forth and so on and whatnot. So we know they kind of maintained in areas where the Delta regions and so forth and so on. But where the other ones were is a mystery. And there's answers to it. But we have a lot of ethnic groups. How about the Bamoon? How about those people? They had the famous script. Where were they? Were they in the south, or were they in the north? I'm not sure. See, I'm not even sure myself. I don't have that answer. See, so I don't know. And then again, we look at the others. Where were the Mandinka? Where were the Mende, the Siri peoples? Where were they located in Kmt? And when they left Kmt, how did they travel together and end up in the Senegal region? You see, they didn't go to present-day Nigeria to be around their Yoruba brothers and their Ifi, and then the Tiv and the Igbo people, Hausa. They didn't go there. They went further west. See, it's interesting how they even left, because this is an exodus as well. So we don't know where they left from. Now let's look at this even further, and we'll close. Look at the Amazigh people in the north. You know them as Berber. That's a derogatory name, but they're in ancient time they were known as Mozab. Mozab is the ancient name. When they came into present-day Algeria, they changed their name to what? Amazigh. Amazigh. Where were they located? Also in Kmt. Because when you look at the Amazigh and the Fulani, especially in the before the migration of the Europeans came to start the mixing, they're very similar in culture. Today, you have many of the Amazigh, especially to the south. You don't know if they're Fulani or if they're Amazigh unless they by dress. You just cannot tell the difference. And they have mixed. This is like in my heritage. You look at my mom's side. My mom, she's about 25% Amazigh, and she's in 50% 55, 60% Fulani, and then she's got Mandinka, Mende, and so forth. My dad, he's got on his side, from his mom's, on my grandmother's side, is the Igbo people in Yoruba. And now we also know too that the Omo people, which is in the northern part of Sudan, that's on my dad's side. So we know this ancient Egypt also. So it's an interesting history, brothers and sisters. Very, very interesting and whatnot. And I'm hoping that you guys find that as fascinating as well, because you should want to know where you came from. And you should ask the question, well, what about the East Africans? Why are they this way? And then you go to the West, why are the brothers that's sitting in Senegal and Mali and Mauritania and Ghana or whatever, why are they different than our brothers in Somaliland, Eritrea, Ethiopia? You know what I mean? We have differences, don't we? We have differences. We got differences. The only one who marries up is the Fulani, because the Fulani, he has his differences with the West Africans, but he's more akin in mannerisms and bodybuilding and color and facial texture and hair with those to the East. This is why I believe the Somali people and the Fulani people are the same. It's just that when the Sao people, who are our grandfathers, went up to the north, and then when the Exodus occurred, some of the Sao people who became Somal and became, the Ethiopians, they went over to the east. The other Sao people went to the west and became the Fulani. This is what I concur, because there's too much similarities between the people of Somal, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and that region there with the Fulani people. Very, very similar. As you heard me say when I was in Sudan, I had incidents where there were brothers, there's girls who were Fulani with Ethiopian girls. I didn't know the difference until my guide who was helped me and so forth, he told me the difference. I saw the Somali girls and the Fulani girls. I didn't know who was what. He did, because he knew who they were. He said, yeah, she's some Somali, and this, she's Fulani, but they call Fulani people. See, I couldn't tell the difference because they look so much similar. They had to come from the same stock, which is the Sao people. We know that. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, my dear brothers and sisters, I'll be closing here with that. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to add with that. What I find something very interesting in my investigations and looking and doing my studies and so forth and so on. And I'm going to write this and I will close. Okay, Sorta. Okay, Sorta Sin. Okay, this computer doesn't like me to use the old African dialects. They don't. They want to change it. Okay, remember this person here. Remember I told you about this. This is in the 16th dynasty. They're Nubians, but look at the name, the suffix sin. Okay, then again, nationality, right? Designating who they were, which we know they came to be Wolof, Mandinka, Siri, and so forth, right? The great King Taharqa, who came in about the 25th dynasty, said that his ancestor was Osota Sin. We know that in documents. It's interesting, isn't it? See, he said that his ancestor was Osota Sin. The Sin people are Mandinka, Wolof, and some Siri people today, and those who mix with the Fulani. But Taharqa, who was the monarch, the king, I think in the 25th dynasty, said that his ancestor was ruling in the 16th dynasty by the name of Osota Sin. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I'll leave you with that. I'm hoping that you guys do your research. I hope you find this just as fascinating as I do. And excuse me about our provocateurs. We're going to have that. We should be strong enough and confident enough to ward them off with our knowledge and so forth and so on. So I'll leave you with that. Salam alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.